Welcome back. So the last flight was fairly successful with respect to the cooling, but this is the problem here, and I'd really like to try and get a little bit more cooling. You can see the intercooler is right on top of the radiator, so all of the hot air that comes out of the intercooler there goes directly into the radiator. So I thought about this for a little while longer and realized that without any welding and stuff, I could actually lift that up a little bit and create some room under there. So I pulled it out, as you can see, and I'm just making up a template there for a plenum to capture the air coming out of it and then direct it aft, down back over the top of the engine and out past the propeller. So this is what it looks like. I just bent it out of some of that sheet metal that I had left from the wheel well covers and just made it like that. And then the next thing to do was to put some heat insulation barrier on there, which I did. And as you can see, I've created a bracket there to hold it because that intercooler needs to be held up in place. So I'm basically putting all this together with the idea to get all that heat out of there and not have it go through the radiator. The only downside is I won't be able to close the intake scoop to the half closed position once this is done, because it's going to lift up the intercooler by about 2.5 inches, and so that just kind of negates the way to close it. But anyway, as you can see, I've got it all dialed in there, how that's going to work. And so heat insulated plenum there, and I had to create a new back wall. So this is what I was been doing sort of in the second half of last week. Of course, the weather was pretty junk, so this actually worked out good. So I had to create a new one of those because the configuration is different. And here you can see I'm in the process of getting it all installed there. So all the hot air is going to come out right there. So instead of having that hot air go through the radiator, it's all going to be able to come out here backwards and then just go over the top of the engine there. So there's plenty of room for that air to escape out of there, and so it shouldn't really affect the performance of the intercooler, but it'll definitely help the radiator because none of that hot air will be going through the radiator. And if we look around the side here, you can see what's going on there. So turn the camera. You can see there now with it lifted up, there's room for the air to get all the way under there, and you actually see through to the other side now. So with the fan also pulling air through that radiator, and then the ability for cold air to get around that intercooler there, now it should be able to get plenty of cool air through the radiator. And of course I put heat shielding on the top and sides of the intercooler as well, so none of the hot air sort of radiating from that will go through the radiator as well. So there it is in place with the extended silicon coupling. So basically what ended up happening when I moved it up, I just had to extend this one in the foreground there, make that a couple of inches longer than the coupling that I originally had, and the other one only had to be an inch longer, and the pipes all made it up, so I didn't have to cut anything or do any welding and that. So I can always configure it back the way I had it. And there on that side you can also see that the radiator is going to have much better cooling. So that's the setup, and we'll see how it works. Okay, so the objective of this flight was to take it up to altitude and see how the temperatures were behaving.
Battle Tower, Raptor 352, Tango Delta holding short of 22.
Raptor 352, Tango Delta, Valdosta Tower, left close traffic approved, runway 22, clear for takeoff.
Left closed, traffic approved, runway 22, cleared for takeoff, 352, Tango Delta.
So I'm actually going to show the complete flight here, so if it gets boring halfway through, then just sort of scrub forward to the end where I do a summary of the engine log.
Runway 22. Entered runway 22, 5,500 feet remaining. Approaching runways 22 and 17. Entered runway 17, 7,800 feet remaining.
And as you can see on runway 1735, they were actually taking some core samples. I think they're getting prepped up for having some heavier aircraft, potentially 737, coming in there. So they're doing some analysis on that runway. So I had a fairly clean liftoff that time, a little bit of a roll going on there. Again, just adjusting my aileron trim there, but I don't really have to do much now. It's pretty well balanced, and in fact the fuel doesn't seem to make that much of a difference at all. If anything, just sort of being a little bit slow there with a high alpha, if it causes more of a roll effect than anything else. And once you pick up the speed a little bit to about 110, it seems to be more stable in the roll axis. So once the gear comes up, it seems to climb pretty decently now. Pretty happy with that. Definitely makes a big difference compared to the few flights that I did with the gear down. And there you can see the temperatures up front on that forward intercooler. So 180 coming in there, about 160 going out. You can see I've overlaid the engine speed there along with the fuel flow. So the fuel flow, you can sort of gauge that as the throttle. And also I have the coolant temperature and the oil temperatures there. And once I got up about 600 feet there, the first thing I did was actually pull the prop back just a little bit, and then I pulled the power back a little bit, and then the prop back more. And ultimately one of the goals for this flight was to take the prop back further and further and just see how that was performing, and just see how that affects the amount of heat being put into the engine. Obviously with a lower RPM, things should be cooler, but at the same time going faster, potentially things should be cooler. So this is going to be take some definitely a bunch of flights in that to figure out where the sweet spots are for power setting, prop setting, airspeed, for a climb out in order to get the best cooling. But I noticed right away that this change that I made there for the intercooler to route that hot air away from the radiator has definitely made an improvement. I wasn't just worried so much about the oil temperatures creeping up too quickly, and as you can see there, the coolant temperatures were staying pretty low for a long time there, and right about sort of here already, you can see I'm getting the prop back quite a ways already, and right about there I have it all the way back. So and you can tell the difference in the sound of it, and just now it sounds like a sort of truck going along the highway. So the prop's at 2900 RPM or so, 2934 there, and if you take the 158 to 1 reduction drive, so 2930.
Delta, say intentions.
I'm just going to circle sort of in the pattern here, left traffic, and just keep climbing up probably to 4,000 right now.
Raptor 2 Delta left.
Yeah, so the prop there is only running at around about 1800, just slightly under 1900 RPM, which is kind of where MT had said that needs to be sort of the setting. And obviously I've got the power pulled back quite a lot already, with the fuel flow just over 13 gallons an hour, which is about just slightly less than 2/3 throttle. Ultimately I ended up bringing it back to about 10 gallons an hour, which is 50% throttle. And we're just sort of humming along, and I was still able, even at 11 gallons an hour, with the prop pull all the way back, I was still able to climb. So, and the temperatures got to about 240, as you'll see here in a little bit, and then just started to come back down again once I had sort of pulled the power back to about 10 gallons an hour. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I think in order to figure out what the sort of ideal power setting, prop setting, and airspeed needs to be for a cruise climb, I think what I need to do is do some runs where I'm just basically flying level for several minutes, and go through the power settings and prop settings and just gauge some numbers. So look at what the cooling's doing, look at what the airspeed's doing, and look at what the power settings are doing, and then figure out where the sweet spot is, because ultimately somewhere in there going a certain speed is going to get better cooling.
Tower Skyhawk 312 Papa Delta is holding short of 35422 for north departure.
Skyhawk 312 Papa Delta, Von Asta Tower. Right turnout approved. Runway 22, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff 22, right turnout approved, 2 Papa Delta.
Raptor 2 Papa Delta, Skyhawk departing runway 22, report traffic in sight.
I'll be looking for the traffic 2 Tango Delta.
Yeah, so somewhere there's going to be a sweet spot for the power and the cooling and the prop.
Raptor 2 Tango Delta, Skyhawk will be taking runway 22 on a northbound departure.
Alright, I have him on side on the runway. I'm at 2,300 right now. I'll just be circling here to the east of the field.
Yeah, and one of the things that obviously is sort of impeding my climb a little bit here was I was constantly turning, which is, not exactly the best way to be climbing. But as you can see here, I got it back to sort of 10, 11 gallons an hour, and still able to climb here a little bit without temperatures going too high or whatever. So pretty happy about that actually. It was kind of nice to get the prop back so far and have it sort of just cruising along there. So you can see there are 2,300 feet and maxed out at 2,500. At that point I was just like, well, I'm not really going to learn anything new by climbing up higher than that today. And I didn't have tons of fuel on board. I think I had about 18 gallons all together. So yeah, just at that point decided, okay, that's enough, and decided to sort of slowly come back down again. And yes, I was trying to stay out of the clouds there, but I was also wanting to turn there. It was kind of fun being right in the tops there, getting bumped around a little bit there just by the thermals. But actually, once I made the turn around the next time and I was heading north, got in a section there where there wasn't any more clouds anymore, and as you'll see, things really stabilized nicely there. And I did sort of straightened it out and went to sort of see if I could bring it up to a higher speed than I did last time. But just again watching my temperatures, decided not to really go for any fast speeds on this one. And unfortunately, you can see over there I've got my Garmin in front of the GoPro in front of the G3X, but I forgot to turn that on. I need to put that on my little checklist to remember to put that camera on. So anyway, there's the peak. Got 2,500 feet, temperature there 210, on the inlet 189, so that's coming back from the engine 210. So pretty reasonable with that, and as I said, the oil temp didn't get much over about 241, I think was the most that I saw, so pretty happy about that. And I think next time I'll probably just sort of leave that and make it so I can take it up to 250 and see what sort of power setting I can climb at with 250 as my maximum oil temperature. And I don't think that's anywhere unreasonable for a sustained climb.
Tower up, 1+1, request clearance on taxiway golf.
And right about here.
Ops 1+4, proceed on taxiway golf.
On taxiway golf, Ops 1+1.
Yeah, I think it's right about here is where I leveled the wings and just flew straight for a little bit. I think this is the spot. And things kind of really smoothed out. I wasn't sort of above the clouds anymore here, but I was in an area where there wasn't any clouds. So right there. Yeah, definitely nice and smooth, as you'll see here, though I did make a comment about that. Temperatures coming down.
Alright, It's a lot smoother up here now. So I've got power back at 50% right now, prop or engine back at 2900, so I've got the governor back all the way now. Doing 137 indicated. Trying to get the temperatures to come back down a little bit there after the climb. Definitely way better. But yeah, the most I've got to is 2600 feet right now, just babying the temperatures a little bit here. Up to about 241, I believe, was the highest. And Tower Raptor 352 Tango Delta still circling the field slightly to the east, now at 2,000 feet. Just going to sort of remain around about this altitude for another couple of turns, and then be looking at coming in and probably making a left traffic landing on 22, if that's okay.
Raptor 2 Tango Delta, affirmative.
So yeah, I'm very happy with how things were playing out on this particular flight, and as I said, so the next flight I think I'm going to do something similar, but just basically level out at a given altitude, probably 2,000 feet, and then just do some straight runs and with different power settings, and then go through different prop settings, and see how the speeds and the temperatures work out for different power and different prop settings, and then from there I can probably figure out where the best cruise climb power setting is going to be and what airspeed to shoot for. In order to get the most out of the climb without having the temperatures on the oil exceed 250. Obviously, as you get higher, things will get better. But if I do that first in level flight, and then you try and get a good sort of baseline for where I should keep the power at, then I can take that data and actually implement it and try it, in a climb and see how that works out. I am working off of the EAA test pilot handbook thing for testing a new aircraft, but a lot of the things in there are not really applicable to this particular aircraft because I don't have flaps, and there's a lot of different tests in that handbook that relate to flaps, and likewise there's different tests in there that relate to stalls and a lot of things with slow flight and stalls, and I'm not really going to go and do all that. I've kind of figured out where the aircraft wants to stall anyway. Given that it's a canard aircraft, it's much more benign in the stall. I don't have to really worry too much. I know now for a fact, when I get this nose up to about 10 degrees, the foreplane is stalling, and that's usually, happening if I come in too slow on landing. But as you've seen before, I can already fly this with a pretty aft CG. Yeah, it's uncontrollable and stuff, but I know where that aft CG is now. So I won't be loading it like that. And this particular flight, I did actually put the CG slightly forward again, 10.45% static margin. As you can see, right about here is where I tried to do a little bit of a speed run and just brought the power up. I kept the prop at the same setting, but it was kind of like being, in a high gear and trying to add lots of power. I think the engine was just like, yeah, I'm not really going to do it so much. And I only brought it up to about, I think it was 80% throttle. And, I watched the temperatures climb again. And I was like, yeah, really what I need to do is bring the prop back if I'm going to climb like that. And, given where I already was, I was like, yeah, that's enough. I'll try that on another time, to get the speed higher than what I did on the previous one. So it still remains the highest indicated airspeed as I've seen is 159 now. And as you can see, the air coolant temp's just creeping up a little bit more there, but completely manageable. Wasn't really worried at all about the temps running away on this one, which was good.
Target afternoon, Flight 895, Charlie Romeo, visual runway 4.
Flight 895 Charlie Romeo, Valdosta Tower, report consent.
Say again.
Flight 5 Charlie Romeo, Lighthouse Tower, report 3 mile final, runway 4.
Report 3 mile final, runway 45, Romeo.
And going forward, as these flights get longer, I'm going to have to sort of make some decisions here about editing out, some of this content. Just otherwise, these videos are going to take a long time for me to edit and you a long time to watch. So this will probably be the last one where it's a full flight.
Raptor 2 Tango Delta, traffic inbound runway 4, approximately 7 miles out is a Pilatus.
Yeah, we'll be looking for the traffic, 2 Tango Delta.
And as you can see, I also took those Vortelons off, and I don't know if I'll get to show it in this video, but I'll be examining all the cameras in full and having a look what's going on out that wing, because that midpoint there of the wing where the telltale was bouncing around there, it was only on the climb out. So I'll have a look back through that video and see now with that Vortelon gone if that telltale's still doing that. But even so, being it was only on the climb out and it was just a little bit of disturbance on there, I'm not even really worried about that. So overall, potentially I might drop the ailerons a little bit more to preload them a little bit more. I still think that I'm probably going to have to increase the size of those metal things I put on the spades there to make the controls a bit lighter, but for now I'll just keep it because the aircraft, it's a bit heavy in the controls and stuff, but it's stable. It's pretty difficult to over control it when you're at speed like this, and it seems to trim out nicely. Once you get in the smooth air, it just tracks along nicely. You're not getting any sort of oscillations in any of the axes.
Romeo, turning 3 mile final, 4.
Flight of 5 Charlie Romeo, runway 4, clear to land.
Clear land, 45 Romeo.
And Tower 2 Tango Delta has the traffic.
Yeah, and it was interesting. You'll see in a little bit when I come back around to prepare for landing, and I bring the prop back, to the high pitch setting. It just really sounds at that point like the engine is screaming compared to how it is now when you've got it, dialed back in a cruise configuration.
Raptor 2 Tango Delta, same intentions.
I think I'm going to make a right turn at this point. I'm southbound right now, and then I'll join the left downwind for runway 22, 2 Tango Delta.
Raptor 2 Tango Delta, roger.
So I think now that I've done pretty much everything I think I can do with respect to the cooling, and the stability is sorted out. As I said, I may preload those ailerons a little bit more, potentially change those spades out for a bit larger. But overall, I think it's just time now to start, getting this 40 hours on the aircraft.
Flight of 5 Charlie Romeo, turn right, taxiway Alpha, contact ground point 7.
Alright, Alpha, ground point 7, Romeo.
And I'll be trying to get some air-to-air footage. Lloyd, who's been sort of my DAR and helping me out with advice and stuff here, has offered to do that once his aircraft is back and operational again. He's just doing some work on it right now. And, unfortunately getting some ground runs, I don't have any intention right now of doing any, high-speed low passes or anything. That'll come a little bit later, and then potentially I can get some ground footage from that.
And Tower 2 Tango Delta is now on extended left downwind for 22 at 1,300 feet.
Raptor 2 Tango Delta, affirmative. Raptor 2 Tango Delta, same intentions.
I would like to land 22 full stop.
Raptor 2 Tango Delta, runway 22, clear to land.
Runway 22, clear to land, 2 Tango Delta.
And coming up here in a little bit, you'll see where I start to, bring the prop forward again. and that's where things start to get noisy and sound like they're really screaming. So yeah, it's really kind of nice to be able to pull that prop back all the way to where I had it and have it nice and quiet, well, relatively speaking. And everything was nice and smooth as well. Didn't have any problems, with any sort of vibrations or anything like that. I think one of the cameras was picking up a little bit of a harmonic at certain prop settings. You may have noticed on one of them. So depending on where they are and what the prop RPM is, they tend to vibrate a little bit differently. So, but overall, there you can see now I'm bringing the prop back in, and so the RPMs are coming up, and getting ready to put the gear down here. And I've just sort of estimated the gear operation speed around about 125. Seems to be working fine on that. So just make sure I keep it below that for extension.
500.
And I did get myself a little bit lower again. I need to sort of stop doing that really and fly a regular pattern, but just with everything going on and keeping an eye on everything, and obviously flying quite a lot faster than your average Cessna or Diamond that I'm in, things happen more quickly. So I'm definitely, I wouldn't say busy, but focused on a couple of things, and I'm kind of letting my altitude get away from me a little bit, but I will work on that. And got 3 green. So landing gear is working great. Happy about that. Haven't had an issue with that. And ultimately it was a nice day. So after all the bad weather we had in the last several days, and it rained pretty much all day yesterday, finally sort of cleared just after lunchtime today, and was able to get this flight in. It's looking good for the next couple of days, and then I think we're supposed to have some rain again on Christmas Day. But I'm going to be trying to get in, some of these flights, half an hour, hour-long flights here every day now when I can, so I can get this 40 hours flown off. And I should have basically put this aircraft down on that first attempt right about here, but I held it off and sort of overcooked it, and then again did the same thing, and then ultimately put it down a little bit slow. But it was alright, no big deal. Still trying to dial in exactly the best way to land this thing. I just don't want to come in and bang it too hard. So yeah, that was a flight. 23 minutes, I believe, was the total length of that flight.
Raptor 2 Tango Delta, make 180, turn right, taxiway Foxtrot, contact ground point 7.
180, right on Foxtrot, ground on point 7, 2 Tango Delta.
So next time I'm going to try and show you a little bit of the ForeFlight logging, but you can actually look up this flight on FlightAware if you want, and find that so you can see exactly sort of how many times it went around and such. But let's have a quick look at the engine log in a bit more detail, and then I'll let you guys go. Alright, so here's the complete run here. So as I was taxiing up there, I put the heater on, the heater loop on there, which obviously started getting the coolant temperature way down. A quick little run there before I started rolling there, just to cycle the prop and get some oil, fresh oil in the governor there, which is what that little blip was there, and then rolling out on the runway here, and then go to full power, and then you can see the coolant temperature start to sort of rise slowly. Oil temperature rises more rapidly, but again it's set to sort of at about 217 degrees to open up the thermostat there and allow the oil and coolant to go through the heat exchanger there and then keep it cooler. So that's why it sort of climbs quickly there, and then it kind of levels off. And then obviously I'm taking the power back there a bit at a time and moving the prop back a bit at a time, and so that's keeping the oil temperatures just on a slow increase there. and coolant temperatures still coming up, but definitely better than before. And you know, it took a long time here before it got up over here, and still 193 was where it got to there. And at that point, you know, the oil temp, you know, I'm at 50% power over here, and which is 44 milligrams of fuel, because 90 is maximum power. And you can see oil temps got to 242, and then after that point, you know, then they started to come down. So that was good. And then this little blip here was when I just quickly turned off the heater loop there just to see what that did. So obviously there's still more residual heat, and the, you know, the front loop is definitely helping out there. So I just turned that back on again. And this is where I did that little extra sort of power run there. Just took it up to about, I think it was 80% throttle, yeah, 80% throttle there. And just for a short time. And, you know, then everything was sort of, you know, back to 50% power here all the way through. But, you know, coolant temperature's under control there. And as I said before, if I can keep it at 230, I'd be happy all day long. And it looks like that's what I'll be able to do. And of course, when I get up to higher altitude and cooler temperatures, everything should work. Now, the ambient temperature at the bottom here, now this is just picking up the hot air coming out the bottom of the radiator, so that's dropped down a lot, because that was 140 before, and so now it's only 101, 105. So all that hot air that was going through the intercooler and then through the radiator now going out the back is not showing up on this thing, so that's good. Got rid of all that heat. And down here, you know, this is the intercooler temperature in is the orange one, and out is the yellow one. So getting a pretty good delta across there, still working nicely, 100-degree drop on that. And back over here, EGTs, or the turbine inlet temps, were, you know, completely under control there. Started out, maximum got to is about 1675, and then after that, you know, I can just run it here at these sort of temperatures all day long. So not too worried about anything there. And as you saw, the fuel flows, you've already seen all that. I don't think there's really much else to show. Maximum boost levels here I got to is about 43.7, and then for the most time just running, you know, 37 psi here, and then at, you know, mid throttle there running about 31 psi. So yeah, pretty happy with how everything's running there. And of course the lambda was really good too there, 1.6 here, so running nice and lean there. And the worst I got to was there 9.69 or something like that. Just a little bit rich, just, you know, when it comes to full power there, and everything's sort of revving out. But other than that, everything's looking pretty good. So pretty happy with how all that went. Anyway, sorry for such a long video, but you know, a lot to show, I guess. So that's going to be this video. Tune in again for the next one. I'll try and keep it shorter and just give you the highlights. So thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.